Okay, so we're talking to my friend and client, Zoe Roblin, today. And we're just going to talk a little bit about your story and your journey into finding a healthier version of you. And I would really love to just kind of go back to the beginning and where things kind of started to shift for you, because I know that most women that I work with and people that I talk to, our journeys kind of go through stages, and we we tend to start making changes for one reason and then it evolves over time. So I would really love to hear um, your story and kind of where things started for you.
Okay. I My story is I tried all the different things like other people have and tried exercise, tried diet, tried different diets, fad diets, and I was never I was never getting to where I wanted to be or where I thought I wanted to be and needed to be. So for me, I had to take a step back and figure out what it actually was that I was looking for. And it wasn't because I needed to be smaller or I needed to look better, whatever that may be for some people. For me, I needed to feel better. I felt terrible. I felt old. I was sore. Nothing seemed to work right within my body. And I had started doing some work, started going to see a naturopath, and started figuring and understanding more about gut health. But I felt after the naturopath, I was given a ton of wonderful tools, and I knew it worked because she gave me some diet, for lack of a better term, diet type um, things to follow, things to eliminate, things to start with. And I felt much better. But after seeing her, I was stuck. I didn't know what else to do. And
Mm.
that's when you came into my life.
Yeah,
So,
I'm so glad that you bring that part up because I think that's super common as well. Um, I hear that from a lot of people that I speak to. Um, you can be in that place of, okay, I don't feel good. I need to make some changes. I know I need to do things differently. And if you're lucky enough to hook up with a good practitioner or naturopathic doctor or whoever it is, nutritionist, trainer, um, a lot of the times they'll tell us like these are the changes that you need to make, but there's it can be overwhelming at times. It can be like so much. And then that feeling of where do I start with all this, and how do I stick to it? How do I implement? I think that's a super common um, complaint that I hear.
yes, it was because I had worked with her for a year and I knew, okay, this is where I need to be. Um, Definitely gut health. And I, I need more work on my mental health, my putting it all together, giving myself the grace we talk about, and just being okay with things the way they are, accepting my body the way it is when I'm giving it the proper nutrition it needs. When I, not, I, I can't, I don't fault myself if I have a bad day. I'm more graceful, but it's learning that on it. That's a big thing. And that's
Mm,
something that we really worked on and worked through together.
yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's such a huge part of it, is that implementation and working through the process and being okay with the journey and not just focusing on the end result or
Salt.
that desired outcome that we hold in our mind, right?
For
Because
sure.
that's just a small part of it. And if we're holding ourselves to that idea of, trying to achieve the perfect diet or the perfect workout routine or the, perfect schedule, we can end up holding ourselves kind of in a state of misery because we haven't achieved that end result that we're hoping for.
That's right. Giving myself more grace for the progress I have made, more praise, more. It's amazing how much mindset really does play into this, like
Yes.
into happiness, into the journey. Um, I set goals, but once I attain my goal, I don't say, okay, well, I'm done with this now and go back to old habits, because I
Mm.
feel that is something that burned me in the past.
Hmm.
I, I had a goal to run a half marathon. I trained so hard for it. I was on point with everything. The day after the marathon, I was like, well, what the hell do I do with myself now? Right. So yeah, it's okay to have those goals and to want to get to those goals, but you have to have a plan afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Or you don't, but then you feel very lost and you tend to revert back to old habits that may not necessarily be healthy. And it's it's not a diet to me. It's just choices I make to feel better, and they work. And when you see that it works, you understand more.
Yeah. So what would you say would be the subtle shifts that have become the big shifts in your mindset and how you view supporting your body and how you view food choices and all of that? Because it is like, I think, the little stuff becomes the big stuff. And you've mentioned to me several times that the people that you're surrounded by, your coworkers and friends, notice the shift in your attitude and your mindset. So how would you describe those shifts?
Like I I think it's practicing, right? It's the the shifts just make you feel so good. They this is a tricky one to explain, because when you're on point with your food and you feel good, it it trickles down. Your body feels good, your mind feels good. You want to tell more people about it. Um, so then you start you just start talking about it, and you start believing, I guess is the word. And then when you have a bad day, you realize that yes, this is good. This is where I need to be. And I don't know what that. It's easier to, when you believe in something, it's easier to bring other people on board with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the shifts, like I now have, I know that this is when I'm working out my times. And at first, my family didn't understand. Well, why can't you come for dinner at 5:30? Skip your workout. It's okay. It's not okay. I need that for me. I need that for my mental health. It's not about shrinking my body. It's about my mental health and how I feel. And when you become confident with that, people see that, and then they want to, they ask about it and they get excited about it. And you tell people it's okay to do this for yourself. And
Mhm.
I feel as women, we feel we need to do things for everybody else first. We have a mindset of we have to take care of everybody else first. And we really have to shift that, because I realized there was a point in my life when I realized I was no good to my family, to anybody else, because I was so tired and so unhappy and unhealthy. And I I was tired of just plugging along because I had to.
Mm.
I wanted more out of life for me. So when I started doing that, it was difficult at first because it seems selfish to everybody else. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
Zoe's doing all this stuff for her. How dare she? Like, we need her. We need her to be present for us.
Yeah.
Mm, nope. So that was probably the hardest shift. It wasn't figuring out what to have for dinner, figuring out when to schedule things. It was being able to say no to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And almost like you said, you almost have to train your loved ones that this is the way, these are my non-negotiables now. This is the way I'm doing things now. Because when you're in that pattern of putting everybody else's needs before your own, people pleasing, lack of boundaries, saying yes to everything for years, that's what I think the people around us get used to. That's what they come to
Yes.
expect. And so, like you said, when you start to create some boundaries and you start to prioritize yourself, that is going to ruffle some feathers. And some people are going to notice that and be like, what is going on here? Like you said. And it's hard.
Yep.
It's hard to, at first, to honor yourself and be okay with ruffling a few feathers in the short term in
Mm-hmm.
order to uh, keep making those choices for you.
Yes. Like, at one point, I had said to my mom, if I told you I worked until 7, you would be okay with that. But because I have a workout right after work and I'm not available till 7, I it's not okay for me to give that up. And when you make a connection like that for other people, fortunately, she was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. Would I give up a workout, or we go out and eat differently that doesn't support my gut health? Absolutely. You have to find a balance,
Mm-hmm.
but it you also have to be okay with it. Like,
Yeah.
I know when I'm okay with it and when I'm not. And I'm okay to say no now. And that has taken, it doesn't just happen. You don't just flip a switch and be like, nope, I'm okay to say no. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. And I feel that's kind of where we started this question. Maybe I don't even remember the question now, but it it doesn't happen overnight, and we have to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah. And it's funny when I think about that and I think about the work that I've done with clients over the years. When I got into this line of work, when I started coaching people, I very much had this idea in my mind that I would just, educate people on the types of food choices and lifestyle choices that was going to benefit them. And, I would tell them and they would just do it. Very naively,
Yep.
that was what I thought that being a coach entailed. Was okay, I'll give them the advice, and like you said, someone can give you the whole plan, lay it out in your lap, and but implementing it and being consistent is a very different
Very
story.
different.
Yeah, and working through all of the layers of it because it's very multi-layered. It's not just about the foods you're eating. It's, it goes down to, like you said, having these conversations with your mom and explaining to her why this is so important for you. Like it's just, layer upon layer and mindset shifts and reframing things. And
It's true. It went from um, my son would text in the beginning, Mom, we're doing this at this time, blah blah blah, to a text now that says, Mom, what do you have going on after work? Are you working out? Is it a boxing night? I'm trying to plan something. So now they've reframed. If they want me there, they're going to shift time frames as well.
yeah.
Um, my my favorite is I went and got a bunch of gluten-free spices, and this is what I'm going to make. Is this going to be okay for how you eat? So yes, they still see it as I eat differently,
Mhm.
but trying to accommodate, like starting to accept, okay, she she is actually doing this, so what can we do so it's more included?
Right.
And
Versus
sometimes,
looking at it like, oh, mom, you can, skip the diet for one night. It's not going to kill you. Like that kind of mentality that people have sometimes.
yeah, and they see the difference if they spend more time around me after I've eaten bad things, like I'm just lethargic and a sore tummy and different symptoms. And oh, this is something. And my husband's way on board with it now, and he sees what sugar does to him and different things like that. So it's 100%. And because I've been sticking with it, and I tell them this, it's not a diet. It's not like something I used to do, or this is how we eat. The kids will show up here and open the fridge and be like, you have nothing to eat in here. Well, we do. We just have to cook it because it's not coming out of a box or a can or so yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. And I think that the world is starting to understand a little more
Yes.
that because I look back to if I think back to being a child and how my mom would cook, um, there wasn't a lot of restriction. There wasn't a lot of I can't eat that or I don't eat that. Um, so it takes time to kind of learn these things and like find your freedom foods, find the foods that support you and that are going to make you feel good and not make you feel terrible the next day. And but this is a relatively new kind of concept for people, and I think that yeah, the way that we look at it makes all the difference in the world if we're looking at it from a place of I can't eat that. That's a different feeling than I choose to not eat that because I know how my body will feel and I'm choosing to not feel that way.
100%. And we were chatting a little bit before this call. Alcohol, it's one glass of something. Basically, I might as well just have a glass of refined sugar and pour it into all my joints. And the, it just makes me so puffy and so sore. To me, it's not worth it. And if I'm going to do it, I plan for it. And I plan to be feeling really crappy the next day. And I do that with food now too. So
Yeah. And but I think the prerequisite for being able to make that choice and own that choice is to start understanding. And I think that this is the part that um, can be so different for people. So if you are eating, um, well, let's say the standard American diet, you're just eating a lot of processed foods and quick, easy, grab it from the freezer, pop it in the oven type foods with all of these hidden ingredients, it can be impossible to know what your food triggers are because it's just a jumbled mix of stuff. And it takes time to build that awareness and start going through the motions. Like I know you working with a naturopath, you did the food sensitivity testing. And so that was a starting place for you. But then a lot of it is that trial and error of, oh, I ate this and it really did not agree with me. Okay, what was it about that thing? And learning each step of the way so that you have that clarity and you can make those choices. Like I always talk about my family, dairy is a big no-go. And I've known dairy has been a huge trigger for me since I was a kid, but lo and behold, a few years ago, my kids would still ask for Dairy Queen whenever we would drive by. And at first, I would, give into that because, oh, I don't want to be overly restrictive and, I don't want to be too crazy with my kids' food choices. But it would be, we would go for Dairy Queen and we would all be running to the bathroom at the same time. So
Not fun.
like, yeah, how long do you need to keep repeating that cycle when you know how it's going to affect you? And ultimately, one day I finally just said, no, like we still have our treats, we still have our indulgences, but I know exactly what this is going to do to us. And it's not worth it. I am choosing to not do that anymore to my body, to ourselves.
Yep.
And you know what? The world didn't end because we don't eat ice cream anymore.
Nope. It's true. And I find the treat days or treat evenings or whatever they are just become longer and longer stretched out because it you don't want to feel that way. When you figure out what makes you feel good, what keeps you thriving, then it's just so much easier to stay on point with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't become a chore. It becomes, I eat this way because I feel great.
Good.
And when I
Yep.
eat the other things, I can feel it in all, like you said, being able to tune into, okay, I had a little bit of sugar yesterday and now my joints are aching today. And like when you get to that level of understanding your body, I think it's just, there's so much freedom that comes from that because you can own those choices and make those decisions and know exactly what is going to come up for you. And still we still have those moments, like it's not perfect, but we still have those moments where all of a sudden you're like, something's off this week, I'm not feeling great, and like, what is it? And but you're able to kind of start doing some investigation and looking at, okay, like how has my sleep been, and what were my food choices, and what are my stress levels like, and go through one by one and kind of figure out what it is that
What,
your body needs.
and sometimes, to be honest, like my check-ins with you just kind of reground me because if you're just going along and everything's great, 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 and then all of a sudden it's not, sometimes I forget to check in with myself and say, what did I have? What did I do? And then you and I will be talking, and I'm like, oh, right. Because sometimes like I'll use chia seeds. They're hit and miss with me.
Mm,
And then if they have been in something and I forgot that I'm eating them, and all of a sudden, I'm having discomfort from something, I'll be like, that's what it is. And it might not be because I've had sugar. It might, it could be something good I'm having. So I think it's important to remind yourself that sometimes you have to check in with yourself.
Yeah. And that every body is different because
Yes.
that's a huge thing too, is I I'll speak to people that will say, I eat this because, let's take broccoli and cauliflower, for example. People tell me it's healthy to eat, so I eat it, but then, I'm bloated and gassy and feel awful afterwards. And like recognizing that just because this is deemed a healthy food, it may not be the best choice for you. And that's okay because we are the best authority on our own body. So
Yep.
that's a shift too, that chia seeds are great and deemed
Healthy.
superfood, but if
Yep.
your body doesn't tolerate it well and you know that you end up with some symptoms, then it's time to kind of dig into that a little bit.
Yep. Absolutely. And and it's we're we're human. Like I don't always remember everything or
Yeah.
to think back, what did I do? Why did it? That's where our check-ins are very important because you just get the brain re going again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also love for you to speak about some of the connections that you've made between your mental health and how you're supporting your body. Because I know you had some revelations in the last year that we worked together. I'd love you to share some of that because I think that is just so valuable for people that maybe haven't tuned into that in their own lives yet.
Was there something in particular?
Well, particularly, I'm thinking about how when we started working together, you were talking about how you'd come home from work and
Oh, yes, yes.
be irritable and anxious and sometimes snappy with your hubby.
Yep. So I always thought that I do suffer from anxiety, but I always thought it was because when I came into the house and things weren't just so, I was anxious about it because I was so used to there's a place for everything, everything has its place. That's one of my own little mental struggles. And through working with you, I discovered I was actually, my anxiety was being brought on, I would say 85% of the time, from being hangry, from not nourishing my body properly. And working through that, coming home after work and just being a tyrant, for lack of a better word, I will now stop when I walk in the door, reset, and ask myself before I walk through that doorway, am I hungry right now? What is going to go on when I walk through this door? Because at work, we are totally different people. I
Mm,
am anyways. I have to put on my customer service voice and I'm somebody else. So you don't notice that you're actually getting hangry because you're putting on the customer service voice.
mm,
The drive home, you get home, you're kind of getting back into your own zone, your own headspace, and that is huge now. It has changed a lot. It has made our relationship a whole lot better because I can recognize when I'm hangry. And I will say, if we're driving to Winnipeg, and I will say, we need to stop. I need to get my snacks out because I'm starting to get cranky. I used to not be able to, I used to feel I couldn't go shopping because I would get so anxious with all the people around us,
mm.
everything else. Our last trip to the city, I made sure I didn't get hangry on the drive up, right? Eat properly, have a snack. I owned shopping. It was wonderful.
Isn't that amazing? That I love hearing
Yes.
that, and recognizing, I think that the way that we view health and the way our medical system deals with issues is we chop people up into little pieces. We have, professionals specifically for mental health, and we have professionals specifically for your physical health and every part of you. And in that, we've been kind of trained to look at our bodies as separate pieces when really, and so, if you're struggling with anxiety or irritability or depression or all of these things that we deem as mental health struggles, we tend to view that as a standalone issue.
Yep.
And now, by being able to, first of all, practice that pause that you said,
Yep.
stopping and checking in with your body, and how am I feeling in this moment right now physically, that could be contributing to the anxiety or irritability or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Making those connections and checking in with yourself. Okay, did I eat enough today? Oh no, it was a busy day and I was, run off my feet, and I probably didn't eat enough. And like, that is so huge, not only for you um in that moment, but also, like you said, for your relationships, like with the people you love.
Yep. Yes. And just to know, I'm not saying it doesn't make me anxious, but knowing I need to eat something and this is why I'm feeling like this makes you feel a whole lot better when you can find the why. What,
Mhm.
we go through our lives. Why do I feel like this? Why am I always tired? Why am I this? Why am I that? To be able to know that doesn't mean I don't feel tired or I don't feel anxious. It's a peace of mind in itself that brings it all down a level. And to be able to walk in and say, Brian, I am starving. I do not want to be an asshole today. Just so you know, this is where I'm at. Makes a world of difference than coming in and just reacting right away.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of like puts you in the back in the driver's seat a little bit, where I know that people that struggle with anxiety um, will feel very out of control and like a
Yes.
victim to their anxiety, right? Because sometimes it can just bubble up. And like you said, it's not like it's uh, a fix all. It's not like it's making the anxiety magically go away.
No.
Recognizing that it there are certain foods or lifestyle habits that do exacerbate it, make it worse. Being able to tune into that and recognize what you need and how you need to support yourself in order to feel better, I think is just huge.
Yes. And I would believe most people don't like to come home and start being cranky and mad at the world and just not feeling like I'm always upset or always have to do things or it's so different. And just I needed a snack. Like that seems so simple, right? But figuring that out and tuning into that, huge, 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 huge.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because I think that people so often are, when you're feeling really terrible, when you feel like your body's falling apart, when you feel tired and sore all the time and anxious and all of that happening, it can be easy to get into that mindset of thinking that the solution is very complicated, right? Because you've got all of these like multi-layer symptoms happening. You're like,
For
oh,
sure.
what is it? I need to find the thing that's going to make me feel better. And people will go reaching or searching for what I call the silver bullet, looking for that supplement that's going to make it better, or that diagnosis to tell them what's happening. And so it can be so easy to completely disregard the foundational stuff, that
Yep.
that simple stuff, that like getting enough sleep, getting enough movement,
Movement.
getting sunshine, and enough nourishment. And I get it, and I sympathize with that thought process because I've been there myself, right? And you just start to think like, I feel so awful that it's got to be something
Big.
huge. It's
Got it. Yep.
complicated, complex solution to this problem. And not to say that sometimes there are underlying health issues that need to be,
Oh, for sure.
figured out. But so much of it, when we start with that foundational stuff, so much of it starts to sort itself out.
Well, and I can say that because I don't have a thyroid, so I always wanted to blame all of it. It must be because of my thyroid. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have one, so yes, I have to be mindful of that and stuff like that. But if I basically stick to the basics, the movement, the sunshine, the eating, supporting my body, usually it all balances itself out pretty well.
Yeah.
And I I stopped using that as my crutch for why, why I couldn't this, why I couldn't that. Does it mess things up once in a while? For sure it does. But if I go back to the basics, we can usually get it sorted back around, get my
Yeah.
levels where they need to be.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
the other thing when you were talking about, I used to always say I was an emotional eater. I need, a closet eater. And it was triggered by my anxiety. Well, the funny thing is, not eating properly would trigger a lot of the anxiety, which triggered the emotional eating of bad things. So you think that you're actually soothing yourself. So now I'm still an emotional eater, but I just make different choices and I feel good about it. And then you don't beat yourself up about it as much. Well,
Yes.
I shouldn't say as much. I am so aware of it now. I don't beat myself up about it
Yeah.
because I will emotionally eat something that's good for me.
Yes. And I love that you brought that up, that cycle of um, leaning on food to cope with difficult emotions or anxiety is one that we all do that in our lives to a certain degree, right?
For
Um,
sure.
but it becomes disordered when there is no awareness. And then, like you said, you're quite often reaching for those foods that are making it worse, as
Yep.
reaching for high sugar foods and processed foods, and then how that makes you feel physically, but also how that makes you feel mentally. And it can just create this hamster wheel of um, unhealthy habits that we get stuck on. And then, like you said, deeming yourself, an emotional eater, or oh, I'm a sugar addict, or I have a sweet tooth. I find that that's a thing I see often too, is we're making it like a part of our personality.
We've accepted it.
We've accepted as a part of who we are. We are identifying with that when it's actually a behavior, kind of like a behavior loop that you've become caught in,
Yes.
and it's not who you are, and
No.
it doesn't define who you are.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
I love that.
it's the I see people or hear people say. I've actually just corrected somebody at work the other day. She's like, "Oh, I'm so fat," and I'm like, "You're not fat. You might have fat, but you aren't fat. So you can't own that."
Yeah.
And she was like, "I've never heard somebody say that before." I said, "I have fat, but I don't believe I'm fat."
Mm-hmm.
And it's right there, it's the mind shifts, right? We just have to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
Like have grace, have patience with yourself.
Yeah. And I love that. I know that you feel passionate about wanting to help others as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that you do that in your work, in your time with others at the gym, and
Yep.
that you feel passionate about wanting to help people in a positive way and make a positive impact on people's lives in whatever way you can. So, what do you want, or what do you wish more people knew? Like, if you could help people by giving some advice that you've learned on your journey, what do you think that would be?
Ooh, I I wish people knew that it it doesn't just happen. It it's something we're always working on. It's something, there is no quick fix. And I wish people would just be more kind to themselves. And I wish they just knew that they're not alone. There's always somebody out there struggling with something. It it might not be food, it might not be movement, it might, there's always something we struggle with. But I don't look at it as I'm always struggling. It's just part of the stages we're at.
Mm,
So I wish people would just realize it's okay. And it's okay to ask for help and get help. And I wish they just knew that they could do this.
yeah. I love that you said that. I think that so often we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we think we're alone in what we're struggling with. And but we're also um adverse, usually women, to
Yep.
accepting help, or to opening up to others, or finding a community that can help support us, right? When we struggle, we like to kind of back
Go
away.
back.
Yeah,
Yep.
pull back from the world. And there can be that idea in our brains of, I need to figure this out on my own. And I don't know what that is or where that comes from, but I see it often.
Sometimes I feel it's vulnerability, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, if I call Amanda with this going on, she's gonna think like I haven't even been listening to her for the last year.
Mhm.
But and it's not. It's just we're human.
Yeah.
Really. That's what we have to remember. We're human and we're all figuring this out as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. And not comparing whatever step we're in um, to someone else's, comparing your step 3 to someone else's step 10 is something I think that we do unconsciously a lot of the time. And
Yes.
and maybe we see someone who we view as them being where we'd like to be.
Yep.
And but we don't get to be privy to all of the hard parts of that person's journey and all the times that they had to pick themselves back up and all the times that they had to wipe their own tears away. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be so easy to just I think judge and see someone else and think, oh, they've got it all together, and that's just
Yes.
not the reality.
Nobody has it all together
No.
is the actual reality.
Exactly.
And everybody's had a journey. And like on when I'm having a bad day, practice the pause, look back, how far I've come in mindset alone is it's crazy. It sometimes I think I don't even know who that other person was.
Yeah.
It ages and stages is a big thing for me. That's a term I use all the time. Not everybody understands it, but depending on your age and your stage in life is is a lot to do with this. And I feel as I get older, you just have, I don't want to say you have more time because I've chosen to make time
Mm-hmm.
for myself. And if people can start doing this at a younger age, I think that's one thing I would love to see.
Yeah.
More people not waiting till they're in their 40s to take care of themselves.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
you know what? I completely agree. And I think that when we start to figure this stuff out for ourselves, when we start to dig in and we ask for help and we start learning, one of the beneficial side effects to that is we start to create a ripple in
Mm-hmm.
the community around us. And like you said, you mentioned your husband starting to tune into his food choices. That's a direct reflection of the work that you've done, right?
Yep.
And so I think that the more we can look after ourselves and feel better and create more awareness in our habits and our choices, then our kids and our partners and our coworkers, they reap the benefits as just kind of a little bonus, right? And maybe those people around us will start to tune into things a little bit earlier as a result of seeing it work for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just believing in it. People will say, "Oh, but your kids are grown up. You have time." I'm like, I kind of feel like that's an excuse.
Yeah.
What do you mean that's an excuse? And I'm like, we can do anything we want to do, anything we make time to do. When something's a priority, we make it a priority. So,
Mhm.
and when it doesn't suit where we want to be, we make it into an excuse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And the unfortunate part is a lot of people that are still in the excuse stage um, will not truly wake up to it and take responsibility until they've hit a low. And for a lot of people, that's the hard part, I think, of my job is um, a lot of people aren't ready to take action until they've hit that rock bottom. And
Just
I wish that they took action sooner, but for a lot of people, that's what has to happen first before they find that motivation to start
yes,
making these things a priority in their life.
yes. And a, a great excuse I've heard before is, well, you don't understand. Well, I might not have had that exact same situation, and I might not understand yours, but I understand what it's like to hit bottom. And I'd just like to see you not hit it
Yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah.
That's what I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Zoe, it's been lovely talking to you as always. Um, Thank you for sharing your
Mhm.
vulnerable parts of your journey and the wisdom that you've learned. And I can't wait to keep going on this journey with you because, like you said, the work is never done. It just changes and it evolves, and we reach new levels. And with those new levels come new challenges. And I'm here for it. And I can't wait to see how things continue to evolve for you in your life and all the connections and insights that you have.
Well, thank you for having me and supporting me and being there for the last year. And I I'm excited for what else we can figure out and dig into.
Yes, me too. Absolutely. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Amanda.